Hello and welcome to episode 105 of the Alfa Romeo Driver Podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and this week we have one of our occasional Meet the Club Officials podcasts with two of the bravest individuals I think I've ever met. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, we're going to get on to the task you've taken on shortly, but for people who are just joining the podcast, I have with me Owen Reeve and Reeve Taylor, who have taken on the ownership of the MiTo Register for the club, which I think David Faithful has done an outstanding job of over the last, well, it feels like 400 years, but the MiTo's not quite that old, but certainly for a long, long time. So we'll talk about how big a challenge that's going to be and what your ideas for the register are in a little while. But I thought it'd probably be a good thing to do to have you introduce yourselves first. So either of you can start, but just give us a sense of how you got involved in Alfa, how you got involved with the MiTo, and how you got involved with the club initially.
Reeve, do you want me to start first?
Go ahead, Owen.
Yeah. All good. So my name's Owen. So I've been a MiTo owner for nearly, 7 or 8 years now. I came across the vehicle. It was my second car. So I'd sort of been roaming around in a Corsa or a 1 litre Corsa for 2 years. And I thought I need something a bit more meaningful and a bit more pizzazz than, the Corsa. And I came across the MiTo. I'd seen a couple on the road and I thought you don't see many of those around, and nor do you see them modified. So if you do know me, you know how quite the extent of, how much I've modified my MiTo over the last few years. But those of you that don't, I've been through various courses and various different stages of, the car. It's now got a wide body. It's now on air suspension. It's a full kind of show spec, but I did have one previously that was on just coilovers, and drove that to its absolute death, unfortunately, hence why I've got another one that I'm taking a little bit more care of. But yes, so originally found the Alfa, and it was then through that I then found the Facebook group, AROC, then started going to some of the shows and started meeting everyone, and it was just a really great atmosphere. It was a really great place to be. Met David pretty quick. He was quite upfront with, introducing himself. He always made sure that he introduced himself to everyone, making sure he knew, or that everyone knew who he was, which is great. And it's definitely some shoes to fill with the MiTo Register, but definitely looking forward to it.
Brilliant. And Reeve?
Yeah, I echo a lot of Owen's words there. So for myself, I've been a petrol head for many years, probably as long as I can remember, really. I'll admit my first love was with a certain Bavarian brand. Both myself and Owen haven't completely washed ourselves of that sin yet, but we're getting there. But the Alfa kind of interest was always there. A certain BBC motoring show presenter was the one who often remarked that you're not a true petrol head until you had one. And that always kind of stayed in the back of my mind. So fast forward a few years, we came to a similar sort of a situation as Owen, really. It came to first car time for me, and low budget, needed something insurable, and the MiTo kept popping up. And so it was great specification, and it looked interesting. It was quite rare. It was unique. And I ended up jumping into my first MiTo. I think that's how so many people who've joined the MiTo Register have ended up falling into Alfa ownership and have continued on their passion that way. So it's really good to see. My first little MiTo was a Veloce in the classic Giulietta Rosso, a colour that has a bit of history behind it. The little 95 horsepower, 4 litre, 1.4 litre, 16 valve. I've only had a 4 litre.
4 litre MiTo might even be more interested than Jamie's race car.
Yeah, that'll be.
might be a tad nose heavy though.
Oh yes, to be honest, I think they all slightly are. Maybe not a twinner, but yeah, that was a cracky little engine and gearbox with the Teledar wheels, the Pelifrau red leather, lovely specification, but unfortunately started eating too many gearboxes. A few too many things went wrong, so jumped into my QV a couple of years later on. Now is Rosso Ameliatore, if I can pronounce that properly, with the carbon star belt, the manual gearbox, and that's been a wonderful car. 30,000 miles of hard driving, track use, still in its original multi-air, and going to keep it forever, hopefully. So it was through
still with a 10mm socket rattling around in the boot.
I think that's gone now. However, the DRL, which fell out day 2 of ownership back in 2021, is very much still there. So got to keep a few things consistent on that front. But I think it was a similar story to Owen, really. It was jumping in on that Facebook group. It was such a helpful environment that David kind of created for everyone, especially with the resources on the MiTo Register website as well, that it just got me more and more involved through things like the track days and the other AROC events. And that's it really went from there, really.
And I think, I've got a son who is, it's his birthday this weekend. I should know how old he is. He is 31. And your generation are not really formal car club people, are you? I mean, it's far more likely that you'll find an online community and join that. And actually paying to join a club I think is quite uncommon for probably under 35s. So what was it about the club that was good enough that having found that, free Facebook resource, you thought it was worth paying the membership fee?
I like the fact that I got a card. No, so it was handy with, so obviously the card is sort of a bit of pride with it. It was saying that I was a part of something greater than just it being a Facebook group. It was more of a case of you are a part of the entire club. Also with the magazine that comes out, I say every other month and things as well, it's always nice to sort of read through that, see what everyone and sort of in each other register has sort of been up to as well, because there's some stuff that you just not a part of, also you don't really see. So seeing that, reading through those, flicking through some of the photos, seeing any of the sort of restoration projects as well is all really cool. So definitely enjoy sort of flicking through those. But yeah, it's just that sense of belonging really, and knowing that you're a part of something great, and that it's not just a case of, oh, it's another car club. It's a case of you are a valued member of quite a great community.
Yeah. Reeve, you talked about events, and I know that there are plenty of multi-mark car events and modified car events, but is there a particular appeal to being in a field that's exclusively shiny Alfas?
I think absolutely. I think on face value, there is something about the way most Alfas are presented at a car show. You can always tell effort's gone into it, and the people that own them tend to be real enthusiasts. There's a passion for the cars that they've brought to that event. And outside of that, I think the events themselves offer so much, because Alfa has got such a long, storied history. You can have a look around the modified register section, for example, and see what people are starting to do and people are creating with their cars. You can also see where Alfa's going in the future with the new Junior, and you can also look back for a very storied past. For example, I'm really keen on a few 2000 GCVs after the most recent National Alfa Day. I'm certainly on the list now. So I think there's something for everyone really when you head to one of these events.
Yeah, no, definitely with the shows as well. I say with my sort of background in regards to the sort of the modified car scene, as in shows are a big thing for me. I love going to shows and seeing what other people have done, seeing kind of what the new trends are sort of becoming or slowly becoming as well. I mean, obviously you're going to see a few dingers here and there. I mean, not everything's going to be fantastic. And we sometimes see that in the Alfa community as well, but they're all being sort of restored. It's nice to see where they kind of start to then where they come up to the beautiful things they are today. But no, it's just a great place to go. It's just, again, you just get to see everyone face to face. You get to walk around their pride and joy. They get to talk to you about it. You get to talk to them about it. And same with as in I like to go into the show and shine sections and sort of speak to the people over there when I'm washing the cars and things. You always get the old, oh, you've missed a spot. It's like, no. And but it's that laugh and joke that we all just love, really.
And we talked, Reeve mentioned the modified register. There's also the Ragazzi section. There's a huge amount of crossover between MiTo Ragazzi and modified, although, hate to go back to school, it's like a Venn diagram. There's lots of people who are only in one of the circles. There's a big core at the middle of that Venn diagram who are modified Ragazzi MiTo owners.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's because the MiTo is so vastly sort of, available. So with the car, because they've come down in value a little bit, there are more younger people that are now starting to drive that are seeing those cars and thinking, yeah, this is what I want to get. So obviously that then falls under the Ragazzi bit, where obviously you're a younger owner, or say you're a younger part of the AROC. Again, with the MiTo register, and then the modified section, a lot of them want to modify their cars because that's the young mentality. You want to put wheels, exhaust, sound systems, you want to sort of get it lower to the ground. So it all kind of falls into, like you say, just that little triangle.
Yeah. And I don't want to pull either of you away from the MiTo, especially as you only just started. But if I think back to when I joined the club, I was an Alfa Sud Sprint owner. The Sprint was kind of the same sort of age as MiTos are now. And I was in my late 20s. And I kind of got into the club as somewhere to go and find other Alfa Sud and Alfa Sud Sprint owners. And ended up on this amazing 30-year journey of buying all sorts of other things after that. So are you guys both committed to MiTo exclusively, or are you starting to, as you're exposed to other cars from the present and from history, starting to look at other Alfas that might be of interest?
Don't get me wrong, everyone loves a Giulia QV. As much as I would love to, yeah, maybe down the line, let's say if you can get one for the right money. Obviously, it's like further down the line, some of the sort of the first ones that came out are coming down in price. I say even then, even some of the ones now, the 73 plates will come down the next sort of few years or so and will be sort of more available in terms of sort of money wise. But even some of the classic ones, I do like a GT. I've seen there's a guy, I believe in Poland, that's got a modified one. I've seen that a couple of times flicking across my Instagram and I'm like, that looks so cool. So I've got that idea in my head as well that I'd like to do something with, I say one of those. But again, it's just, yeah, never say never.
Well, and Reeve, you mentioned the 2000 GTV. I think something like a third of all club members have a 105 series car of one sort, even if they've got something else. Is that a genuine aspiration, or just something that you see on the showground and think, oh, that's nice?
Well, I certainly can hopefully at least see that in my future. That glorious twin cam engine, I think, is a big draw for myself, as well as just the way they look. I mean, the MiTo will always have a place in my heart, will always have a place in my garage. But yeah, something like a classic Alfa or something like a 164 Busso, something the Busso would be quite nice as well. That really appeals.
Good. Okay, so let's go back to the MiTo, having tried to tempt you away. We've mentioned David, and I think, to me, one of the remarkable things about how brilliant David was as the MiTo registrar is he is, how can I put this politely? He's older than the average MiTo owner. I think we're about a year apart, so I'm not being too insulting to him. And yet he managed to have that enthusiasm and engage with younger owners, and I think provide people with the kind of resources that you all wanted. What was it about the register that really worked?
It kept it professional. So with it still being the fun side, doing all the track days, I say the events and things, it still had the professional aspect. And that's what I quite liked. It wasn't just a case of you jumping in with a load of other young people with essentially the dad of MiTos. And it didn't quite feel like he had to rein us in or anything else to stop us from doing anything stupid. It was just a case of we all respected the fact that he was the guy. He was the MiTo guy. I remember a few years back where he said that he was going to step down, and there were quite a lot of us that sort of petitioned to keep him in there because he was just such the right role for it. We just didn't see any other option. And to be brutally honest, we thought it was going to crumble. But I say no, he stuck to it. He sort of came back and sort of realised just how much of an impact that he had made on that group or on this group. And yeah, it's outstanding.
Reeve?
Yeah, I think David in his role, he represented the MiTo register and, to be honest, more and more AROC these days as a whole perfectly, because he represented what is, quite a strong, diverse community. I know AROC as a whole has made great efforts in recent years to push that even further now with the likes of the sim racing that we undertake, as well as Ragazzi and Alpha Female. But as you say, yeah, David might not be the traditional MiTo buyer these days, but there's a MiTo for everyone. You see older MiTo fans who have just delved into this slightly more modern world of front-wheel drive, modern creature comfort Alfa Romeos, and they love them. When I was chatting to a few people at National Alpha Day, they seemed really delighted with it. But you also have got that crowd of younger drivers, first drivers. So I think trying to continue that on will be a big focus of ours. But that's what I like so much about what David did in his role.
It's interesting. I have a former colleague of mine who years and years ago was a computer magazine editor, and he was my deputy editor, and he's actually a couple of years older than me. And a year or two ago, his mum bought a MiTo and absolutely loves it. Joined the club as a result of having bought the MiTo, and she must be certainly late 70s, early 80s, and not quite as in. She's not going to modify it, but
Damn.
She's absolutely loves it. And she's come from a middle class family with Mercedes all her life, and it's the first time she's ever been enthusiastic about a car, which I think says a lot about the little MiTo.
No, it is. Yeah. definitely a car that you can get behind the wheel of and enjoy.
Absolutely. I'd echo that, because I know both myself and Owen are actually BMW 330 owners of slight different iterations, but very similar type of car, big power, designed to go and crunch miles, and the uber comfortable machines, to give them some credit. But it must be said that you'd think this small 1.4 hatchback from 2012, in my case, you wouldn't expect me to look forward to at the weekend breaking out the keys and going for a drive, but yet I do. And there is something I think a bit special about the MiTo these days. It's aging really well now. I think people are starting to realize actually we're now missing something special, something interesting from hatchbacks, which the MiTo offered. I mean, back in its day as well, think adaptive dampers, switchable driving modes, torque vectoring diff. It really had all the kit back in 2008, and it makes it still a good daily driver these days, but also just adds that excitement and to driving. So hopefully we can keep the MiTos going for a while. Our numbers are beginning to drop with that decreasing value. So I think part of our job, as well as allowing the owners to enjoy it, is to make sure that we help people stay enthusiastic about them and keep them looked after.
Yeah, we were talking about this on the 939 Spider Register the other day, that they've both reached that point where there's some parts that are getting difficult to get hold of.
Yeah.
And there's some jobs that are, you get a quote for it and it's more than 50% of the value of the vehicle. And I think that's kind of the tipping point at which people just start to say, I love it, but I can't justify paying 2/3 of what the car's worth to put a new clutch in or whatever it is that needs doing. So I think it's an important function of the register to get people through that hump and get them to the point where the values plateau and start to pick up again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is something that the register was successful in my case. First around the Veloce, I was a young driver. I didn't put that many miles on, unfortunately. I just had to say enough is enough, unfortunately. I still know the whereabouts of the car, sold it to an AROC member, and the car's still doing well. But with the QV, by this time, I'd had all these events, all these experiences with AROC and with the QV. And I know even if it throws a big bill at me, can't get rid. And then the other side of the garage, the German side of the garage, they do throw big bills, more than the MiTo does, but tenfold. And I know I can get rid of them. I can swap those out. I will have fond memories, but I'll quite forget I can't get rid of that MiTo. So hopefully the MiTo register can continue converting people in that way.
No, definitely. Most definitely.
So in terms of the register and thinking about all the things that David's done historically, what's the biggest challenge you guys think you face in terms of keeping some of the things that he's done going? Is there anything that you think realistically is going to go by the wayside, or are you pretty confident that you can maintain things like the buyer's guides and all of those kind of things in the way that David's done?
In regards to the buyer's guides and things, the foundation of it is all pretty much laid out. The information and every sort of the information is already quite readily accessible. David, bless him, has said that it will still sort of be on the sort of the back foot, sort of if in case we had any issues or were like, we're not too sure. He said he's more than happy to sort of assist where obviously he can. But in regards to, like I say, the buyer's guide, it's already been set out. There's a few, let's say, MiTo owners that were sort of still dedicated to helping out. I know Elliot Mitchell is quite heavy on the sort of the electronic side in terms of like head units and things. I still see when people ask questions, he's there straight away with a link and saying, these are the ones that you can go for. These are the things that work. These are the things that don't work. And it's quite nice to see that there's that kind of rapport still, that he's able to help as well, even though he's not necessarily an admin. It's that handy kind of bit that he's got the knowledge in it, that he's been through it so many times that he knows what needs doing and sort of how these people need help. In regards to sort of keeping it how it kind of is, I think we want to try and still keep it youthful, still keep it fun and sort of involved, but still keep that side of professionalism, because obviously with younger owners, you got your 17 and your 18-year-olds that are thinking, this is great, this is awesome, I'm going to do handbrake turns in here and I'm going to be doing burnouts here. And we kind of want to stray away from that, because obviously we know the MiTos are better than that. As much as it might be fun to do it in the snow, obviously we've had a bit of snow recently. And obviously, as long as you're doing it kind of in a safe space, it's okay. But obviously, if we got any antisocial behaviour, then obviously we'll deal with that accordingly. But I know we want to try and do Kerber again. I know that unfortunately sort of fell through last year, but we want to try and get that up and running and seeing if we can keep that going. I know I think I've mentioned to Reeve before, that I want to try and get some Caffeine and Machine sort of meets together. I know quite a few people like to go to Caffeine and Machine, and we did a MiTo get together at Caffeine and Machine for the 10th anniversary, I believe, a few years back. And that was great fun. It was nice to get everyone together in that kind of space where it is sort of a motoring home. So I want to kind of keep that going as well. And even if I can try and get some sort of local or local-ish sort of little meets as well over the weekends, whether it's going to sort of local car cafes and things, and just to keep the interest there, really, to make sure that we are still here, we are still kicking about, and we're actually, say, keeping this thing going.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Really, what Owen says, there's a perfect foundation that has been laid out. I'd like to leverage some of that, maybe bring it back into the forefront. We had a great little YouTube channel running that I think would be great to get some new content out on. Owen's already had some fantastic ideas regarding Instagram, TikTok content, as well as Owen said, the ideas for some of his events, which I must say, most of the credit there goes to Owen. He's already put his brain to good use on that front. Also like to continue on with the magazine content, that sort of thing. So it'd be great to, as Owen said, continue on from where we left off, really, maybe adding in a couple extra features, really, because why fix something if it ain't broke, really? So
you've been in role, what, 2 months or something like that? It's pretty short period of time. There's nothing so far that you've thought, oh, we're going to have trouble with this. This is going to be a challenge. Everything pretty much in hand in terms of keeping things going.
Nothing springs to mind so far. I mean, we're in a little bit of a quiet period at the moment due to obviously the weather, and we're only just into the new year. So I did something on the Facebook group the other day, which was sort of like a virtual car show. So it just sort of triggered people into sort of posting their cars up, just getting some photos through. Maybe some people that hadn't really engaged before had sort of engaged. So I've sort of put a photo of, let's say, my own car up just to, let's say, start get the ball rolling. And I think there was quite a fair few people that sort of joined in with it, which was really nice. So I might do a couple of those as well, just to, let's say, keep the group alive and things as well during this, let's say, this quiet period. But again, there's nothing I've encountered yet that's made me thought, oh, maybe. But no, I think as summer comes around, we might run into a couple of challenges, but it's not anything that we won't be able to, let's say, talk out. It's nice that I've got Reeve, I'll say that we've got each other kind of to go through these things together, because then obviously it's not just it's like a problem halved, really, instead of it just being solely on one person. So we can sort of go through it together and figure it all out and smash it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been set up rather nicely. I know the transition over from David was really carefully considered. It was not something that was glossed over quickly. I know there are going to be, like Owen says, I think times in the summer when we got event planning to do, which for myself I've never really done for a car club, but I'm lucky in the sense that I know we got support of the other registrars, the likes of David, who has been so gracious in his offers for support. So I do think we are going to have to leverage that on that sense, because we really do want to make sure that we put on events and offerings that are worthy of what the MiTo Registrars had so far.
And I think one of the things we've seen in the last year or two has been a lot more collaboration between registers. So I know there was quite a few events last year between the 159 and the GT register, for example. 916 guys have done stuff with other registers as well. Any thoughts on doing stuff with the Giulietta guys? I know we had the tongue-in-cheek MiTo versus Giulietta podcast getting on for 5 years ago now, but I think there's a little bit of love as well as a bit of rivalry there, and obviously the crossover with Modified and Ragazzi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be something I'm very, very open to. I know the likes of Rob Whitney, Giulietta registrar, who I know perhaps best through the sim racing that he's undertaken over the past few years. He's a keen racer, a keen driver, so he'd be very excited in joining in on something like a Kerber Sprint Day, where we get the front wheel drive modern Alphas out on track and seeing what they were. So yeah, I'd be very keen to collaborate.
I shouldn't really say this. We had a round of the virtual racing last night, a track I'd completely forgotten about. And it was only when I started racing around, I thought, oh yeah, that's where Rob Whitney took me off 3 times in one race, that I remember the track layout. So be careful at Kerber, but no, it'll be fine.
Yeah, you never know.
One car at a time at Kerber, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
thankfully Kerber is only one car at a time. You do a sighting lap and everyone gets a little bit leery and it's like, no, this isn't a racetrack. This is a sprint track.
I have been on a track day with Rob. He's absolutely fine. So that's some of the stuff that you're thinking about doing. You talked about social media, and in particular things like Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, I'm a big social media user, and we've tried as a club to get some of those social media channels going from a club perspective, and it's never we've never been hugely successful. Facebook obviously works. I think the group setup and the degree of control you have and the way that you can have, conversations about various different topics within a Facebook group kind of works for car clubs. But one of the things that we've seen is that every time we've set up a TikTok channel or an Instagram account, it's fine for a little while, but the club ones tend to fizzle out, and you'll get some fantastic accounts set up by individuals who focus on their car and events that they were at. But having that kind of collective register account has never been hugely successful. So I guess the question is, what have we been doing wrong, and how are you going to do better?
The thing is, with social media, it is very, very difficult. There are some accounts where you can have some great content and it just doesn't get the kind of feed or anything else that it kind of deserves, and it doesn't do very well. And you get the other ones that are kind of mediocre, and they do quite well. They somehow, as they get into it, everyone's feeds. It is just going to be a case of trial and error. I say with TikTok especially, it's difficult to try and get the right engagement. So you've got to try and find either it be the right hashtags or the right trending music, or even if it's just not quite necessarily trending, but a sound that has been used a lot of times that still sort of jumps up every now and then. And even sometimes, I say, even with my personal account, there are some videos that I posted 6-7 months ago that are still getting, some feedback from just the sounds alone. A challenge again with that is some of the sounds, I think TikTok goes through and sort of fiddles out any of the copyright stuff. So sometimes you'll be flicking through your old videos and suddenly it's like, this has no sound anymore. So you've then got to try and find something else to replace it. We're just going to try and stay consistent with it. It's going to be a little bit difficult at the moment, again, because it's quite the quiet period. With Instagram, I've opened up, I think I did a couple of stories a while ago just to say, look, if you've got a post or a video and you want to collaborate with us, you can do that, because then not only does it boost their account, it sort of somewhat boosts ours as well, because it shows that people are sort of sharing it. It's just getting the engagement from everyone else to help boost it. Sometimes with it just not being, us that will do it, sometimes it can be the other people, and you just have to hit accept, and that's it. You've then got something on your feed. With regards to the videos, with TikTok, you've just try and keep it light, professional, maybe a little bit funny as well. You can put some captions in there as well, just to grasp the audience. And then you can do some more serious ones. It's just keeping it light, keeping it fun, just enjoying it, really. That's all you can do.
I know about this time every year, I look back at the content that I created last year, and I think I've got loads of photos. I've got drone footage. I've got videos. This is the perfect time to get some of the stuff that nobody got to see last year out there in the wild. And then it kind of never happens, because although you've not got the content coming, it's not that long before you're starting to plan for events and go to new events, and you run out of time. So all the best of luck with getting that off the ground. And obviously the other registrars and the club's official accounts will do what we can to promote those channels.
No, thank you.
On that kind of subject, is there anything you would like from either the club or from MiTo owners, from register members, to help you make the register more successful, this year and in the future?
I guess it's just participation. It's more just the involvement of it as well. I say definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. I know on Facebook it has the option to be anonymous. I guess on that side it's kind of the fear of being judged, or if it's the fear of it being a silly question and things, but there's no such thing as silly questions.
There are some stupid answers.
Yes, there are. As long as the question isn't, can I get wind deflectors for my car? No. Then that's probably a common one.
And the answer isn't always you need a new battery.
No, it's not. No, definitely not. But yeah, it's just making sure that people know that there are no silly questions. We are all here to help, whether it's a case of if you want to put a post up or message us privately, we're more than happy to help and just assist where we can. And if we can't, we probably know the people that we can point you in the right direction of that could be able to help or even have better experience than we do. So just ask away. Don't be afraid. We're all here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo it. And I also think what I would like from our community is to tell us what you want, really. If there's something that we're maybe doing wrong, or there's an idea or a suggestion, as Owen said, fire it towards us. Let us know. This community is about you. So it only works really if it is working working for you and it is how you want it. So please do tell us exactly what you want.
Perfect.
I'd like to say a big thank you to David as well. You know, he, as we say, massive shoes to fill with this, really. I remember when I first joined the MiTo Register, it was a good few months out from when I actually was able to buy my first car. And one of the first posts I saw from David was not long after he'd ordered his final white Veloce TCT and was announcing the final week of production for MiTo production. We're now 7 years on from that date, and that 7 years has absolutely flown by. And I think a big part of that is the amount of work that David has put in. He's, as Owen referred to him earlier, as kind of the dad of the group almost. He is what you think of, really, when you think MiTo Register. So looking forward to filling those shoes. A bit daunting at the same time, but very much looking forward to it.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's very much big shoes to fill. But I say with there being two of us, I'm sure we can squeeze in.
Well, and I was just flicking through some stats as we were having that conversation, just thinking about David's impact and, you know, some of the milestones that you have to try and top. Just looking at the 10 most popular episodes of this podcast ever. At number 3 is our very first ever podcast, which was an interview with David. So that's third behind Mike Brewer, who's number 1, and Jamie Porter. So that's not bad going. And then 5th out of 10 is the MiTo versus Giulietta one that we talked about earlier on. I think 2 below that is Vicky Butler Henderson, which is basically David in drag, isn't it? I mean,
she is a big MiTo fan, isn't she?
She's a huge MiTo fan.
That is brilliant.
I just hope she's not listening to this. And then 2 further behind that, in 9th place, is the MiTo 15th anniversary podcast we did. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, it didn't hurt things too much then.
No. So 5 of the top 10 are MiTo related.
Fantastic.
So I think, again, that shows how popular the car is in the club and how active and enthusiastic the membership is. So I think, yes, you've got a challenge in terms of filling his shoes, but you've also got a fantastic community to work with and to kind of harness that enthusiasm.
No, definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to continuing on being a part of it and do what I can to help out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question, which is one of my favourite put you on the spot type questions. So we've been looking back at David's legacy. If we were, I don't know, 3 or 4 years from now and looking back at your time as the MiTo Registrars, what would you like people to look back and say, there's one thing that Owen or Reeve did, or that the two of you did together, that really moved the register on from what David had done before?
Now, isn't that a question and a half? Blimey.
That's the one I probably should have allowed you to prepare for, but I only just thought of it.
Quite possibly. No, if anything, from sort of 3-4 years down the line, I would like to have the people consider that essentially with David being the dad, obviously we want to still keep him there in the loop and everything else. We want to make sure that people still remember him and sort of has him as the sort of the main registrar that really kicked off the MiTo register. But I want him to feel like that, if anything, that we're his MiTo sons. That we've been able to sort of carry it on. We've been able to sort of smash it out just as good as he did, if not better. Just sort of keep it live, keep it active, and keep smashing it.
So you're going to be the daddies and he's going to be the granddad by then.
Yeah.
I may have stretched that analogy further than was wise. Reeve, any ideas on your legacy?
Yeah, I think I don't want to replace David's legacy, of course. Don't think we can. I think what I want to do is follow the MiTo and the MiTo register in this transitional phase that I think the car is. What I'd like to do is have someone look back over the past few years and go, now the MiTo is becoming a bona fide classic almost, and it really is a true alpha. And I think if we do that through keeping things like the resources available on the website and also the social media as we discussed and some memorable events, I think we can do that.
Just keep as many of the cars on the road as possible and people still enthusiastic about them.
Yeah, that'll be really ideal. I think, as I say, transitional phase where these days you don't tend to see some of the common issues that we used to see a few years back of, steering columns. Still obviously a fairly frequent thing, but people seem to know that, you need to keep a good battery on it, not to use the everlasting phrase there, but we're starting to see little gremlins appear like subframe corrosion, that sort of thing. So the car as a whole, it's becoming a bit older. It's getting towards the end of it, even the younger ones are now starting to get towards the end of their traditional service life. So I think if we can keep people enthusiastic, keep the cars on the road, show everyone that it is a proper Alfa to get enthusiastic about, that would be a nice legacy to have, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's it for this episode. The podcast will be back in 4 weeks' time on Sunday, the 2nd of March. And as is traditional on the nearest podcast to International Women's Day, I'll be handing over the mic to Alfa female founder, Kirsty Hodson, and I'll be back in April. Episode 106 will be available to download from 1:30 p.m. from YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podbean, and everywhere else good podcasts are found. Until then, stay safe.